It's absolutely great to be here, and yeah. I mean, what an event. This is my first time at Groundswell, and I've been invited a number of times, and like I said, I wasn't able to make it, but I wasn't going to miss it this year, and boy, am I glad. As I said yesterday, I do a few of these events. I'm getting to do fewer and fewer every year, but I can honestly say of all the events I've ever done, this is at the top of the list. It really is. Yep. So my plan here today, I realize some of you heard me yesterday, and a bit of this is going to be repeat because not everyone fit in the tent, but I'm going to keep this a little bit shorter and sweeter today, and I really want to open it up at the end for some questions because I think that's how we really get to interact as a community. So what I'm going to start with today is talking to you about community and the importance of what we're doing, that it's not just about us as farmers. You know, as farmers, we're not just producers, we're in the ecosystem services business, and we're nutrition, the provider of nutrition and nutrients. And as I enter my later years in life here, I've really changed my focus to one that if we're going to get back to really paying farmers for what they do, we need to get back to the point where food is truly used as preventative medicine, and farmers are paid accordingly for that. You look at what's happening today, and it's the same all over the world. Healthcare costs have skyrocketed, and I'll talk more about that coming up. And it seems to me that, and not in all cases, so for you in the medical profession out there, don't get irate at me, but it seems that doctors are only writing prescriptions, and they're only working on treatment. We need to work at prevention. And that prevention starts at the end of a fork. You know, eating is an agricultural act, as Wendell Berry said. We need to get back to the point, as I said, where farmers are paid for that preventative medicine. Consumers, you're not just consumers. Remember, we got to this production model because consumers demanded copious amounts of cheap food. The consumers need to get on board and demand that food be grown and raised in a regenerative manner, not only for the betterment of the ecosystem and the farmer, but to improve the nutrient density of that food. And finally, businesses, your actions really affect food security, you know, supply chain resilience. If you demand food that's grown in and on regenerative soils, you're going to have a more resilient supply of high-quality food. No matter where you're at in your ideology, politically, regionally, global problems that we face today are real. And I don't care where I travel all over the world, those problems are the same. Droughts are becoming more and more frequent, and I know people talk about climate change, but I think we really need to talk about climate change for what it is. Climate change, in large part, is due to the degradation of our ecosystems. You know, take a look at this photo I have up there, and this is becoming commonplace across many areas of North America, Asia, Africa. You see large amounts of soil blowing, bare soil. Where's the living plants? How are we affecting positively the energy cycle, the nutrient cycle? That's what's causing climate change. We need to face reality. It's our degradation that, for the most part, caused climate change. Flooding becoming more and more frequent. You know, I can't tell you the amount of dollars spent every year worldwide due to the damage of flooding. Now, what really is flooding? Well, flooding takes with it, you know, and it encompasses water quality, water quantity, and the small water cycles diminishing. I took this next photo myself. I was in an area that gets approximately 32 inches of precipitation a year. Half an inch of rain fell, so, what is that? 12.5 millimeters approximately or so. And look at that flooding that's occurring. Okay? Why we have flooding in all of our, not all, but a lot of the lakes, rivers, it's because we have an infiltration problem. We've destroyed the aggregation of our soils. By not having the aggregation in those soils, we're not able to infiltrate water. Hence, flooding occurs. And then the ironic thing is, I actually heard someone in this conference saying that, hadn't rained for a week and they were in a drought. And I'm going, my goodness. We don't start considering anything a drought until you're in your third year of less than 50% normal precip, 3 years in a row. Then you're in a drought. 1 week, you're not in a drought. That's ridiculous. We have to build resiliency back into our soils. In addition, decades of conventional agriculture practices have really taken the life out of our soils and the nutrition out of our food. Now, it's really, really difficult to find good data on the nutrient density of food. Some of the work done by David Thomas, and there's more work that has been done more recently, but it's absolutely amazing just how little nutrients we really have in our food. I tell people today that very few people, I really believe less than 5% of the people on this planet have tasted truly nutrient-dense food. We don't have food anymore. We have food-like substances, right? It's just disguised as food. And we have ultra-processed food. And what has that led to? Well, obviously, more and more sickness. We see this over and over and over again. Take a look at these stats. Look at what's happened with chronic disease, cancer rates, and this is in the UK. Take a look at those numbers. And that's just, since 2020. That's absolutely appalling. Are we going to stand for that as a society? What are we going to do about it, right? Nutrient density of food is health freedom. We have to understand that. I got to tell you, these notes are so small, I can't even read what's on there. So, yep, it's all about chronic disease and how that's destroying our family. The studies I saw here, over 48% of men, adult males in the UK, suffer now from at least one chronic illness. Over 51% of the women in the UK suffer from a chronic illness. Is that acceptable? What was it 50 years ago? Think about it. Now, I want to stop and make this perfectly clear. Am I standing here saying that agriculture is to blame for all this? Of course not. Sedentary lifestyle, many other things are. But we have to, as farmers and as brands, and even as consumers, we have to accept part of the blame for this. I'm going to tell you a story here. This is a story of Roy Thompson. When he was 20 years old, Roy was diagnosed by doctors with a series of conditions, including Epstein-Barr virus and Crohn's disease. This is a very healthy 20-year-old who was raised on a farm and was going to college. He went to one of the best hospitals in the United States, and they told him, well, this is the prescriptions that we're going to recommend and prescribe to you, and you better be ready to take these for the rest of your life. So for 8 years, he took that medication, and his conditions really did not improve. Continued to lose weight, continued to go downhill. Roy said enough. He said, enough's enough. I'm going to take things into my own hands. And you can read there what he started doing. He started sourcing nutrient-dense, regeneratively grown fruits, vegetables, started making his own bone broth. I started working with him on how to raise grass-finished beef, started growing his own pastured proteins. Over the course of the next several months, Roy's condition dramatically improved to the point he stopped taking all medication. What happened then? He started educating others. He started changing his farming program, went totally regenerative. Now he's a big proponent for regenerative agriculture. Besides that, he can enjoy the rest of his life with his family. You know, he healed himself by using food to heal. Now he's using food as preventative medicine. It's important to note Roy's story is not unique. There's many others, and we're seeing more and more of them every day. For those of you who were in here yesterday, I showed you this slide, but I think it's really important. Those 2 eggs in that skillet, one is a regeneratively grown and raised egg, and I'll be honest, one of them is from our farm. And if you noticed the past 2 days, there was a film crew following me around. They're filming the trilogy to Kiss the Ground, Common Ground, and then the new movie that'll be out next January will be called Groundswell. And how fitting is that? So when we were filming Kiss the Ground, I was trying to educate the film crew as to the importance of how soil health equals plant health and animal health. And they asked me, well, Gabe, is there really a difference in the eggs? I said, I tell you what, when you go back to town tonight, you go to the grocery store and you buy any eggs you want. Doesn't matter what kind, and bring them with tomorrow, the next day. And they did. They brought them out there. And then I said, okay. And they had this fancy cage-free egg, you know, a national brand. And then I said, okay. And we drove out to our 1,500 land hens out on pasture, and I said, now you go pick any eggs you want out of those nest boxes. They did. We went back to the house, took out that skillet, and they started cracking eggs. They cracked the full dozen eggs. Every one of them, they cracked one of theirs, one of mine. Every one looked like this. And that is in the movie Kiss the Ground, this picture. See, the fact of the matter is it doesn't take a genius to look at those 2 eggs and see which is the higher in nutrient density and phytochemical compounds. You know, that's what it's about, and it all equates to soil health. This is becoming more and more supported by research. So our organization is involved in a project where what we're doing, we're going out and we're identifying farms that have been going down the regenerative path for a number of years. See what those farms are growing. Everything from fruit to grains to vegetables to pastured proteins. Then we're going to a neighboring farm that grows the same thing, whether it be a grain, a fruit, vegetable, pastured protein. Okay? We are getting agreement from the neighboring farm to allow us to grow the same variety of grain or the same pastured protein. Then Dr. Stefan Van Vliet and his team of scientists come out. They test the soil for soil microbiology. They count plant species diversity, insect species diversity, do a whole suite of soil tests, water infiltration, aggregation, carbon, et cetera, et cetera. Follow that through. If it's a pastured protein, they'll check the animal, what the animal is eating, okay? Then they actually test the plants that animal is eating. And then when either that animal is harvested or eggs or milk or the grain, whatever the case may be, they test that. And Dr. Van Vliet, using a mass spectrometer, can quantify over 2,300 different phytochemical compounds. 2,300 they can identify. And these phytochemical compounds, or phytonutrient compounds as they're sometimes called, that's what really drives the health of our gut microbiome. See, you know, when you go to a store and you buy a product and look at the label, all you're really seeing is protein, carbohydrates, sugars, fats. That's really not what feeds your gut microbiome. It's these phytonutrient compounds. And what they're really finding is that the more diverse the plant species, insect species, soil biology, the more phytonutrient compounds that end up in that food that we consume or that the animal consumes. So soil health, plant health, animal health, and human health. It's that nutrient density that we're truly looking for that is driving, this story. And I really believe that our goal here should be to get to the point in time where farmers are paid based off these phytonutrient compounds in food. Wouldn't that take all this BS out of agriculture? I tell you, then a farmer would be paid really according to what they're producing, and they would be rewarded. And my goal would be for food to become priced like medicine, because that's really what it would be medicine. Now you say, but Gabe, how are consumers going to afford that? Well, what if we can do away with 50, 60, 70, 90% of all illnesses, right? What's that worth to society? We need to think of it in those terms. So we need to practice regenerative agriculture, and I know I've said this over and over the last 2 days, but I'm going to keep repeating it. I think this is a definition we can all agree on. Regenerative agriculture is farming in synchrony with nature to repair, rebuild, revitalize, and restore ecosystem function, beginning with all life in the soil, moving to all life above the soil. That's all-encompassing. And what does that do then? That drives the 4 ecosystem processes: the energy cycle, the mineral or nutrient cycle, the water cycle, and biodiversity. All of these schemes that the government has and others need to come down to these 4 ecosystem processes. What are you doing on your farm to drive those 4 ecosystem processes? As a brand, what are you doing to ensure that these goods you're sourcing for your product are having a positive impact on these ecosystem processes? Or are you just greenwashing things and saying that you're doing good things? Are you buying in mass balance, or are you really buying what you know and what you can prove? The beautiful thing about these 4 ecosystem processes is they take place anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world where there's soil and we can grow plants, we have these 4 ecosystem processes occurring. And I've said it a number of times in my presentations the last 2 days. This is how I know I can be 100% confident. You put me on any farm anywhere in the world and we can get it regenerative by focusing on these 4 ecosystem processes. And I've had people say, yeah, Gabe, but you don't understand. I live basically in a sandbox or on a beach. Take a look at this photo. This is in Australia. You talk about sand, okay, that's what it is. Yet look at that top layer of topsoil. Okay? Focus on biodiversity, focus on the energy cycle, building aggregates, moving carbon into the soil. I showed you the pictures yesterday on our farm, how we were able to take that very degraded, light-colored soil and make it like a dark chocolate cake. There's no reason any farm in the world can't do that. You can. I'm 100% positive of it. And if you don't believe me, just bet me your farm against yours. I will get it done. Yep. How we drive those 4 ecosystem processes, again, is with the 6 principles. You got to know your context. Where are you at? Yes, your context will be a little bit different than mine. You get different moisture, you have different growing days. Do you know how jealous I am of you in the UK? You hardly get a frost over there. Over here, we have 110 approximately frost-free days every year. I just think, man, do you know the biomass I could grow if I had a year-long growing season? My goodness. Yeah, unbelievable. But your context is different. All of our financial context is different. I tell people, my financial context today is a lot different than when I was $1.5 million in debt. I can afford to do a few more things today as compared to back then. So you have to take that into account. Your family context, your spiritual context, all those things come into play. Limit soil disturbance. And I've had Conversations the past 2 days with a number of you. Gabe, you really dislike tillage, and I'm organic, I'm going to till. Hey, I didn't say you have to eliminate it. I said limit it, okay? Are you going out and tilling your field 10 times a year, or are you only doing it once? Okay, there's a big difference between the two, okay? How much synthetic fertility are you putting on? I showed the picture yesterday of the no-tiller whose soil looked like a brick, right? Over-application of nitrogen. You want to destroy soils? Put your soils in lucerne or alfalfa or a clover monoculture for a few years. You'll absolutely destroy the aggregation of those soils. Why? Too much nitrogen. Soil is approximately 11 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. You're adding all that nitrogen, where's the soil going to get the carbon? Right? It's going to eat the glues in the soil aggregate and collapse your soils. Pretty soon you got a brick. It's as easy and simple as that. We have to think about these things and limit them. Obviously, limit all synthetics, chemicals, pesticides. Armor the soil. Keep the soil covered. I had several people come up to me and say, Gabe, but I'm going to do tillage. I'm organic. Okay. Get back in there immediately and seed a crop or cover crop if you do your tillage pass. Don't leave it more than a day. Do it immediately the next day. Encourage diversity. We need more diversity in our ecosystem. How many plant species do you have? How many bird species, insect species, right? We need to understand that. We need to understand all 6 of those principles. Living root as long as possible, livestock integration. Regenerative agriculture is a solution to this problem. What I have shown here is a family, McIntyre Farms in Idaho in the USA. The McIntyres, there's 5 siblings and their parents on that farm. They weren't making it conventionally. What they decided to do is do direct marketing, diversify. So they started adding different proteins, including, as you see there, laying hens. Now, all 5 families are making a living off that farm, which is about 600 acres. It's possible to do that. Besides that, they employ another 15 people. What's that doing for their community? Also, they're producing a tremendous amount of food for their local community. We're revitalizing rural communities using these regenerative principles. This is what we have to focus on. How are we going to really stimulate our local economies? And I understand there's some very big brands out there who are trying to do some good things. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I tell you what, ask yourself as a consumer, are you supporting your local farmer? Are you supporting your local community? Are you selling into your local community? Are you buying goods locally? We need to do that. As we go down the regenerative path, more and more people are going to be able to make a living. We're going to be able to influence our community positively. We need to start securing a safe, consistent supply of nutrient-dense food for our communities. COVID really shined a light in many areas of the world on the importance of that food security and buying local. Most people who were direct marketing during COVID saw a 100 to 200% increase in their sales. Unfortunately, once COVID waned, most of them lost at least half of that, okay? Now, I'm going to talk to the consumers and ask them why. If those farmers were good enough for you to source from during COVID, why didn't you stick with them? Okay? Is it only because you wanted cheap food, or do you want nutrient-dense food? We have to secure a strong, decentralized food system, right? We need to get back to the way we did things years ago, in my opinion. I tell you what, I would much rather drive out of my way to support someone local than to drive to the nearest grocery store and support someone, a large conglomerate, thousands of miles away, who doesn't keep money in our local community, right? We need to think about that. We need to think about those things. And I know what many are saying, yeah, but I can't afford that. Okay? How many prescriptions are you on, right? What's happening in your local school system? Is it full of kids? Or is the enrollment in those schools getting less and less? All of these things come into play, right? We need transparency and truth for consumers. Now, I'm going to be very honest here. I am have been about as anti-certification person as you could ever know. And my mind changed when I saw regenerative agriculture being hijacked and greenwashed by many who say, well, I'm a no-tiller, I am regenerative. No. Take a look at the ecosystem processes, right? Or I know of many brands who they go buy some carbon credits and they say, oh, we're regenerative. We're buying carbon credits, yet they're buying mass balanced grain, just from a terminal, have no idea where it came from, right? Yet they're greenwashing it. So because of that, I became more of a proponent that we should at least offer a system, a verification certification, and I'm not going to claim which one. That's up for you to decide. But you need one that's based on outcomes, and it needs to be one where you as a farmer can be empowered by the results that you get from it. You should be able to take that certification. It should be one that tests the biodiversity in your soil, tests and quantifies the number of different plant species you have on your farm. How many bird species do you have on your farm? What type of wildlife? How's the water infiltration on your farm? How much sunlight is being collected on your farm? How much bare soil do you have that's not sequestering carbon and moving carbon out of the atmosphere? Once you get a lot of that data, that empowers you, that you can then go to your potential clients, and that's what they are, because you're selling. Doesn't matter if you're selling to a grain terminal or selling to an individual, and you can say, hey, this is what I have. And then farmers really need to learn to set their own prices, okay? Don't just give what's offered to you. You have a premium product, and if you can prove it, you can even do nutrient testing on that. You can do chemical residue testing, and you should be able to demand a premium for that. And let me tell you, there's people out there that will buy it. My son has about 8,000 customers that he's servicing pretty regularly off our ranch. And he gets a premium. As I said yesterday, he gets significantly higher than organic prices. Okay, who's his number one customer? Is it doctors and lawyers? No. It's mothers with small children. That's by far and away our largest clientele, right? Why? Because what's the most important thing to them? What they're putting in their children's mouths, right? We need to realize that. And farmers need to take advantage of it. I encourage all farmers, become price makers, not price takers. I remember 1999, I took a load of oats to the local grain terminal. They offered me 99 cents a bushel. I begged them for that extra penny. 1 penny. Nope, wouldn't give it to me. I remember driving home and telling my wife, that's it. I'm done being a price taker. I'm going to be a price maker. Now we set our prices on everything, and we set them well above our cost of production. And if somebody doesn't want to buy it, that's okay. There's others that will. Eventually, you'll find the top point. But become a price maker, not a price taker. Outcome-based regenerative verifications. That's what it's about. As I said, we need to quantify these things. They need to be outcome-based. We need full transparency all the way from the farm to the shelf. You know, I applaud you in the UK. You have full traceability of your livestock. Stubborn white males in the US do not allow such traceability. I'm just saying it honestly, and I think it's ridiculous. I think we need to do that. I think every consumer has a right to know how that food was grown, raised, where that animal come from, how that animal was treated. As I said yesterday, we have an open door policy on our ranch. Anyone can drive on it at any time and look at anything outside of the house, okay? My wife drew the line there, okay? But I tell you what, it's amazing. We do have a lot of people. We'll have 2,000 to 2,500 people this summer come through our farmstead. It amazes me. We don't get that many in the winter, really, but I wonder why. But you know what? For everyone that comes, though, there's probably 10 of them that don't bother, but us just offering that to our customers gives them the confidence to buy. You know, and that's a really good thing. Okay. We need integrity throughout the supply chain. There's zero doubt about that. And I think that's what's missing. And I'm really calling on brands to step up and offer integrity. Now, I'm going to say something here, and I'm probably going to receive some flack for doing it. But many of you may not know that Waitrose last year stated that they are going to start requiring by year 2030 all of their fresh products that their 2,500 farmers supply be grown and raised in a regenerative manner. Now, to me, that's a company that is really stepping out, setting the tone, and they're bringing their farmers with them. And they're going to reward those farmers for doing that. I think that's absolutely fantastic. Do you know what a shockwave that sent through the food industry when they made that announcement? Okay? We had a lot of farmers here who were a bit concerned. What does that exactly mean to them? But those farmers should really be happy that they have a buyer who is concerned enough about their operation that they're willing to help take them down this regenerative path. You know, we'll be working with those farmers on this, and I'm really excited about that. Wild Farmed, they got a booth right here at Groundswell. They have made the commitment to take their supply chain regenerative. They're adding diversity and ever increasing it. I give Andy and the gang at Wild Farmed a lot of credit because they're moving things forward, you know. Is it perfect yet? No, but they're certainly better than most, right? And they're really striving to get diversity onto the system. It starts with farmers being educated. Greatest compaction on any farm is right here, right between the ears. Stubbornness, not wanting to learn, not wanting to unlearn and relearn. Farmers need to be educated. And you know, it's happening here in the UK. We're seeing a lot of regenerative practices take place. These photos were taken here in the UK. There's many farmers. Look at last night, Soil Farmer of the Year was awarded. You know, what a wonderful way to recognize those who are doing good things. Okay, I can't even read that small print from here, but it doesn't matter. Brands are next. Hey, here we got a gentleman who's actually going to try and help me. I don't want you to hurt your back. Oh, look at this. That is good, thank you. I'll have John get him a book, I'll sign it. Yeah, thank you. I didn't realize they were moving that so far away. My trifocals can't. Shows you how old I'm getting. Brands and corporations must align their sourcing, operations, and messaging with truth, not market spin. Okay? You know, the cherries didn't ask me here to blow smoke up your rear, okay? They asked me to, Gabe, just speak like you always do, unfiltered. I really think that it is extremely important that brands and industries really take a step. And you know, I was really pleased to be in the booths here the last 2 days and have a number of brands come up to us and inquire about how we can work with them to help move their supply chains down the regenerative path. That is a very good thing. That's what we need to do. We need to hold those brands to that, though. They need to follow brands like Waitrose and what they're doing. I talked about this before, consumers demanding honest labels, and the consumers need to vote with their buying dollar and their fork, okay? I'll be honest with you, I spend a lot of time in airports, airplanes, and I watch people and what they consume and eat, and I just shake my head. Now, it's everyone's decision. They can make decisions for themselves. But I tell you what, it's no wonder the UK has approximately 50% of adults with a significant health issue, you know. Institutions, agencies, schools, okay? How many of you are on a local school board, right? What type of food are we serving in our local schools? Is it food that was grown and raised regeneratively, or is it ultra-processed food, right? Where was it sourced from? Does your food consider ketchup a vegetable? Really? Right? They do in the U.S., and it's absolutely appalling, you know? We're subsidizing disease if we do that. Teachers, chefs, retailers, entrepreneurs, who can all become regenerative teachers and leaders, right? We need to educate everyone, and they need to continue to educate the consumers. This is one I'm spending a great deal of time on lately, healthcare professionals. I have a son-in-law who is a dentist. I asked him, in all your 8 years of college education, how many hours were spent on nutrition? Any guesses out there? Less than 2. Less than 2. For a profession who every bite you put in your mouth affects your teeth, that's just appalling, isn't it? I just can't understand that. We have to educate healthcare professionals. You see, everyone, we've got to get to the point, common ground for common good. I truly believe all of us as a society can agree on 85% of the issues. Despite what the media says, they might think we disagree on everything. I really believe that all of us want clean food. We want clean water, right? We want a healthy ecosystem with biodiversity. We want to leave things better for future generations. Why can't we come together and find common ground for common good? You see, it's not just a farming method, it's a movement. And it's a movement that begins in the soil and touches each and every one of us every day that we consume food. No matter what your role is, whether you grow the food, buy the food, sell the food, or simply sit down and eat, you are part of this journey and part of this story. A story where profitability and purpose can grow side by side. Where clean water, thriving ecosystems, and healthy people are not opposing outcomes, but shared goals. Where brands and businesses don't just follow the market, they shape a better one. And where consumers say, let's step forward together for the farmers we depend on, for the land that brings us life, for the communities we love, for the health of our children, and the future that we owe them. This is our common ground upon which we can all sow the seeds of common good. With that, I am going to take questions for a while because I've had a lot of questions come by when I'm in the booth, and I wanted the opportunity, you to have the opportunity to fire anything you want at me. Doesn't matter. Now, I don't mean that literally, okay? Questions? Who has got questions? Just stand up. I'll point to you and then shout it out. Here we have one. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you talked about Waitrose and their new scheme. So what I really want to know is who will be setting the standards and who will be inspecting to ensure integrity and delivery?
Yep. And I'll just say this, they are making that decision pretty much as we stand here. Who is going to be the determining the standards and who's going to be the inspecting? It would not be wise of me to speak out of turn here. So, pardon me? Perhaps I would be involved. Perhaps. I'll say it that way. Oh boy, I hope I don't get in trouble for this one. My big mouth, though. Next question. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Sammy. I'm studying soil, and I know as a student that you can't learn if you're in a place of stress. I know a lot of our farmers are struggling with that. They're just busy with their lives, and how do they learn from that place? So what have you found is the best way to move someone from that stress to a place where they can learn new ideas?
Oh, great question. How do we remove a person from stress? We meet them where they're at. One thing with farmers, we found the best place for a farmer to learn is on their own farm. Educate. Get out on the farm, and I tell you what, you take a shovel, walk out in the field, dig up a spade full of soil. How well aggregated is it? Then you go over to the hedgerow, dig that up, see how that is. They really learn by observation, and they like to learn on their own field, their own place. That's the best way to teach a farmer. Yep. Yes, one back here. Stand up, sir, and just shout it out. I'll repeat it.
Thanks very much. Great talk, Gabe. Kevin Kennedy from Burgess Salmon. We've got some experience here about social prescribing, which is more based on people themselves, their mental health. Mm-hmm. To what extent are you aware of health systems being interested and engaged in the food quality, the points that you were making here, which seem potentially quite relevant to them?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, and we have been involved in a number of studies that have followed farmers' mental health as they go down the regenerative path. The change isn't just a little. If you had the opportunity last night to come listen to the farmer panel, it was so rewarding to hear the farmers on stage here talk about how young it makes them feel again and how their mental health has improved because of it. Now, as far as a consumer side, we're involved with a number of projects. I mentioned one yesterday in my presentation that's called Fresh RX Oklahoma, where they took 2 subsets of individuals that were receiving assistance from the government to buy food, and one set of individuals had to buy at farmers market, preferably regeneratively grown and raised food. The other could buy anywhere. 20% reduction in healthcare costs in the very first year, just by consuming fresh food from farmers markets. And there's a number of other projects that we're involved with. It's becoming more and more prevalent to do studies like that, and we need a lot more of them, because frankly, there's not enough of them out there. To most doctors and most brands, food is food. Next question. Right here. Yes. I'll repeat it.
Yeah, okay. One of the challenges we surely have is we've seen how powerful the cigarette lobby was when it was being attacked and it was causing cancer. The big food, the big farm, if I stop taking that medicine, you're going to cause a problem. What tactics are we going to put in place with which to take them on when they really get going?
Yeah. Great question. What tactics are we going to have to put in place to battle big food and big pharma? You know what? I honestly believe I had a number of conversations, as I said, the past couple days with several big food companies. You know what? I honestly believe they have children and grandchildren also. Yes, they have to answer to their shareholders, but they really want to do what's right. I don't think they're going to fight this as much as one might think. Now, big pharma is a different story. It's like big chemical in agribusiness. They're fighting it. As you are aware, I'm sure in the States we have a MAHA movement going on, Make America Healthy Again, of which I'm involved with. And what we're finding is, you know who is the biggest, the biggest critic of the MAHA movement? It's not big pharma, it's big agribusiness. And it's actually the grain growing associations themselves, the farmer associations themselves. They're actually giving us more of a headache. And you know what? You just keep fighting. You just keep fighting. And I know this isn't really answering your question, but if you see my backside, that's pretty wide. That's a big target. Just come on. Bring it on. I'm ready for you. Okay? I know that's not the answer you were looking for, but yes, sir.
Thanks, Nick Sanford. You talk about being a price maker rather than a price taker, but for most consumers in this country, they have to be a price acceptor. Therefore, the poorer people with lower incomes go for the cheaper food. And is there a real danger there's going to be a diversity between the wealthier having good quality food and the poorer having to suffer low quality food? And how do you bridge that gap?
Great question. And I really am going to push back on that a bit, because my son sets up at the farmer's market multiple times per week. We accept in a SNAP program, the supplemental assistance, we accept that. You would be amazed at the number of mothers with children on that program who come and buy our food. Why? Because they see their children are healthier when they eat it. Okay? I really don't think that's going to be an issue. Now, we have to realize and talk, this is kind of on the other side of the coin here, but one of the things about regenerative ag that really isn't touted a lot, and I don't tout it a lot because I'm for farmers first. I want farmers to make a good living. But you go down the regenerative path, you will produce things at a much lower price point, okay, as compared to the conventional model. We see it over and over again. So as more and more farmers go down this path, the prices will moderate some. It's supply and demand. But I hope that they don't. I hope prices for regenerative products continue to bring the premium that they deserve. And you know what? What's wrong with that when you're paying less for healthcare costs, right? Your food is your medicine.
Waitrose, fantastic. But are the discounters looking at regen food? The Lidl's, the Aldi's, those, the mass market thing. Waitrose, fantastic. Up in the muesli belt, the wealthy people enjoying Waitrose food. It's how do you get the discounters to take regen food?
Yep, and I will say this, we're actually fielding inquiries from all of them. It's not just Waitrose. It's all of them. Waitrose is the shockwave that is driving others, spurring others down this path at a quicker pace. But, understand that I'm under obligation from non-disclosures. I can't state brands and names, but I guarantee you name the top 20 brands in the world, and I'll guarantee you I've talked to 18 of them. The boards of directors are the heads of sustainability of them. They're all going down this path. So it's going to be everyone. Yep, no doubt about it, sooner or later.
Oy.
That's a good thing.
First of all, thank you for coming. My son and I came here to Groundswell about 10 years ago on the first one they had, and there was half the number of people in this room that there was at that. But we went home and we went fully organic that next autumn. Sorry, fully regenerative that next autumn. We were blessed that we owned the farm and we haven't got a lot of debts. Can you recommend or can you encourage people here to go regenerative? Because there is a slight dip in yields and there is a great worry of people who've got the bills to pay. If they go from doing something they've always done and it's always been reasonably successful, to go to regenerative is a big step. And also, what upset me about it was I've never seen on our farm since we went regenerative a brown field with green wheat rows all ahead and looking beautiful. We do look untidy, but I'm certain our soil is a lot better, and we can get on it before our neighbours can many times.
Yeah.
Can you recommend people to go regenerative?
Why do you think I'm here?
I don't know, but I'm just saying it's
First
a big
of all,
step. But
hats off to you and your son for doing that. I applaud you. That's fantastic. And I wish I would have accepted John Cherry's invitation to come to the first one, you know. Now here I am 10 years late. Yep. Absolutely, I recommend it. Now, to answer your point about the dip in yields, okay? But if we do it correctly, using proper soil testing, removing amendments slowly as the nutrient cycle improves and biology in our soil improves, we should see a significant increase in profitability very rapidly. We should. You know, the consulting company that I'm part owner of, I mentioned it, we went from 0 acres to over 36 million in 8 years that we're actively consulting on. We wouldn't have done that if we weren't very good at increasing profitability for our clients. You know, you have to do it in a manner, take them where they're at, and then slowly move them down their regenerative journey, increasing profitability along the way.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. Yes.
Hi there, Gabe. My name is Jamie. I'm from South Lincolnshire, and I'm known on TikTok as Jamie the Newbie Farmer. And I wonder, could you just remind us, please, because I watch your videos and I love them, and they really are worth a view, everybody, on YouTube. But that chicken thing is just absolutely sensational. Can you explain to everybody who hasn't seen it what you do with your hens and why your eggs are so good?
The hens, what we do with them?
Yes, please.
Okay, so our hens are free range for 8+ months out of the year. What we do, we took old, I don't know what you call them here, we call them stock trailers, you know, that you haul cattle around. If you go drive around old farmsteads, they're pulled behind, people take ones that are wore out, rusted out, and they pull them behind the barn where no one can see them. My son goes and buys those, tears the floor out, puts wire mesh in, puts nest boxes on the back door, roosts on the side, and then that's what our hens live in for 8+ months out of the year. During the winter, they are in a hoop house. They scavenge for bugs and insects and forage. You know, we do supplement some grain that we grow on our farm. It's a mix of wheat, oats, peas, barley, and flax, and they're offered that free choice. I tell you what, it produces some sensational eggs, and we allow the hens to go down in production during the winter, and we do get a little cool in North Dakota, and we don't put heat in the hoop house. We have to heat the water because it'll be 20 below 0 Fahrenheit in there a lot, but they'll go down in production significantly, but you know what? That's okay. I had people tell us, oh, you're going to lose your customers. No, in the spring they come back willing to pay even more because they had to buy store-bought eggs for a month or two. So it's a good deal. It's a good deal. Yep. And you know one thing I'm most happy about? You know, when you go to a commercial egg laying operation, it's all in, all out in 1 year. You know, 14 months at the most is those hens' life. We've got hens that are 5 years old. Are they laying eggs? Probably not. They're on the retirement plan, but you know, that's okay. It's all good. Yep. Next question.
So you're talking about your chickens, which is great. I was just, do you have vermin issues in where you are? Because with chickens for us, foxes.
You're talking about fox and hawks. And,
we literally lose our chickens to foxes.
Yeah, we run livestock guard dogs with our chickens. Yeah, those guard dogs, our guard dogs are truly livestock guard dogs. We do not allow anybody to pet them. When we go out to collect eggs once a day, we'll feed the guard dogs. We'll throw them some feed. Now, we don't feed them chicken, okay? But those dogs are wonderful. They live their lives with the chickens, and we have guard dogs for the sheep, too. We have a lot of predators, raptors, coyotes, fox, so it's not much of an issue. You know, you lose one or two. You know, this year he's got nearly 2,000 land hens out there. What's one or two? And that's just nutrient cycling, okay? It's all good. Yep. Yes?
Hi, Gabe. Mark Tinsley from Shropshire. Do you think we'll have to define exactly what we mean by regenerative? And do you think that's a good thing?
I think the government, sooner or later, will not be able to help themselves. They'll think they have to define it. I gave them the definition, you know? And I just hope it's outcome-based. I hope we get them where it's really about what are we doing for the ecosystem processes. It needs to be outcome-based. You focus on that, the rest of it's easy. Yeah. But no doubt, it'll probably happen that they can't help themselves. They want to justify their own existence. Other questions? We're about done. Man, come on. Geez, I knew I was a good teacher, but I didn't think I was this good, you know?
Hi,
Yeah,
Gabe.
one right. Oh, go ahead.
Speaking of definitions, our illustrious farming secretary before had a slight problem with being able to say what he meant by food security. He didn't really understand the phrase he's been throwing around. Maybe you could help him out and actually give us a definition of what you mean by food security, because I think everyone here would agree how important it is.
You know, that's a great question. What is food security? In my mind, that's building resilience into your ecosystem. Let me give you this as an example, okay? We've been going down this path for a while on our farm. The years 2020, 2021, 2022 were the 3 driest years in recorded history at our town there in North Dakota. Okay, 3 driest years in recorded history. Now, yes, our recorded history is much shorter than yours is here, okay? My son planted and harvested a cash crop each of those 3 years. None of the neighbors around him harvested a cash crop, 0. My son's cash crop was profitable each of those 3 years. Was it record yields? No, it was definitely below average, but it was a significant enough yield that it paid to harvest it, okay? How did that happen? That happened 100% because of the resiliency we've built into our ecosystem and into our soils. My idea of food security is to get health back into the ecosystem, into the soils, into the nutrient cycle, into the water cycle. Even look at the nutrient cycle now. Most of the nutrients are shipped in from overseas, right? How is that food security in your local area, right? We need the natural nutrient cycle working. We need the water cycle. We need the resiliency so we can produce nutrient-dense food as local as we can. That's my definition of food security. A little long maybe, but yep. There was a question over here first. Yes, right here. Just shout it out and I'll repeat it. Yep. Yep. So her question was, most are going to go home into areas where they feel like they're on an island and no one else is listening, and how do they start spreading the message? You have to start by looking in the mirror. First of all, how are you sourcing your own food? Okay, are you sourcing it from a regenerative farmer or rancher? Are you growing a regenerative garden yourself? How are you sourcing? You always start with your family, then start with members of your family, those relatives related to you. Start with your close friends. Go to the school system. Start getting healthy food into the school system. Start on your own farm. Start moving down the regenerative path. Educate yourself. The other thing you must do, you must grow very thick skin. Because I tell you what, they will talk about you, you know? And you know what? You kind of find it's a game after a while. You kind of do things just to piss them off, you know? And yeah, it really becomes quite fun. But Yes, another one.
Yeah, hi Gabe. To open another door for you. We're getting very preoccupied in this country about net zero, and a lot of companies are wanting to be net zero, reduce the carbon, reduce the carbon. Now, of course, reducing the carbon is helping planetary health, and I'm sure you'll know about that. But is that happening in the States, North Dakota? And are you able to link the two? That if we can grow our soil, capturing carbon in the soil, that'll pull in the big companies.
So the years 2017, 2018, 2019, I had a team of scientists come. It cost me a small fortune, but we did soil sampling by grid to over 1 meter in depth. We have added over 96 tons of carbon per acre on our farm, compared to the neighbor's farm right next door, who is a no-tiller, but is not in any way practicing regeneratively.
And is that interesting any of the big markets that are trying to be net zero? For some reason, they're hooking into that.
Yeah, you know, a lot of the markets out there are looking at carbon. You know, here in the UK, you have Regenerate Outcomes, who are doing a good job helping farmers, moving them down the regenerative path, you know, going to reward them for the carbon that they store. And it's happening all over. The States is way behind where you are, and the States are way behind where Australia is as far as carbon.
Well, with respect, I think you need to link that in a bit more. God, I might have to recommend Gabe introduces something, but, you know, bang that drum as well.
Oh, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, my time is over here, and I'm getting messages on the screen, but thank you very much. Anyone has questions, I'll be around. I'll be happy. Thank you.